A Tale of Two Migrations. Characters. Naomi, a Jewish historian, granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. Marcus, an American African journalist exploring the modern trend of Black Americans emigrating. Setting, a quiet café in Johannesburg, South Africa, where both are attending a global conference on migration and human rights.
You know, Naomi, as I hear your story about your grandparents and their escape from Nazi Germany, I can't help but think about what's happening in the US right now. More and more African Americans are choosing to leave, heading to places like Ghana, South Africa, South America, and even Europe. It feels eerily similar, like history is echoing itself.
It does feel familiar, doesn't it? The circumstances are different, of course, but the themes, discrimination, searching for dignity, wanting peace, are strikingly similar. What's driving this exodus for African Americans?
It's a mix of things. Systemic racism, police brutality, the constant threat of violence, and just the exhaustion of fighting for equality in a country that doesn't seem to want to change. For some, it's about finding peace. For others, it's about raising their kids in a place where they won't feel hunted. Places like Ghana are rolling out the red carpet with initiatives like the Year of Return. It's almost like a reverse migration, back to the motherland.
It reminds me of the 1930s in Germany. My grandparents told me stories of the creeping changes, how it started small. At first, Jews were excluded from certain clubs or schools. Then, their businesses were boycotted, and laws were passed to strip them of their rights. Some saw the danger early and left, even though it meant starting over in unfamiliar places. But others, they stayed, hoping things would get better.
Yeah, that's the thing. Hope. A lot of people in the US still have hope that things will improve. They believe in the promise of America, even if it hasn't delivered for centuries. But there's a growing number of us who are tired of waiting. The pandemic gave many of us time to reflect, to think about what we really want. A lot of folks realized they could thrive elsewhere, without the constant weight of racism.
The choice to leave is never easy, though, is it? My grandparents lost everything: family, friends, their language, their home. Even though they escaped the worst of the Holocaust, they carried survivor's guilt for the rest of their lives. And when they arrived in America, they weren't exactly welcomed with open arms. Starting over can be liberating, but it's also incredibly hard.
Exactly. There's no guarantee that life outside the US will be perfect. I've spoken to people who've moved to Ghana or South Africa, and while they love the sense of belonging, there are still challenges: cultural differences, bureaucracy, sometimes even anti-Black sentiment from other groups. But for many, the trade-off is worth it. They'd rather deal with those hurdles than the constant microaggressions and outright violence in the States.
It's a kind of self-preservation. The Jewish people who left Europe in the 1930s did it to save their lives, even if they didn't fully understand the scale of what was coming. For African Americans today, it seems more about saving their spirits, escaping the psychological toll of being marginalized in your own country.
That's it. It's like a search for dignity. And you know what strikes me most is how history keeps repeating itself. Oppression pushes people to the brink, and then they seek refuge. But the systems of power, the ones creating these conditions, never seem to learn.
Sadly, no. The Nazis used propaganda and legislation to justify their actions against Jews, just like how systemic racism in the US has been propped up by laws and societal norms. It takes generations to dismantle those systems, if they are ever dismantled at all.
So, what's the lesson for those who stay and those who leave?
Maybe it's that survival sometimes means knowing when to walk away. For my grandparents, that meant leaving behind everything they knew to escape something worse. For African Americans today, it might mean finding a place where they can live without the constant weight of racism. But wherever people go, the fight for justice continues, whether it's in a new country or back home.
Right. You can leave the place, but you can't leave the struggle. Still, it's a reminder that we all deserve a chance to live in peace, wherever that might be.
And maybe, in time, these migrations will create the kinds of communities that force the rest of the world to rethink how we treat one another. Change doesn't come easily, but movements like these, they're powerful.
I hope so, Naomi. For your grandparents' memory, and for the future of my community, I hope so.